Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mindfulness Monday, June 15th. It's great to be here with you again. After almost 3 months, yes, 3 months in stay-at-home isolation, we are beginning to move back out into the world. That's how it feels for me out here in Los Angeles. Businesses are starting to open, and it's really nice to see that people are able to open their businesses, big and small, but we really want to support those small businesses as we know are having the hardest time right now. And as we move back out into our lives, back out into the world, ease our way back out into the world incrementally, and find ourselves adjusting to what has been called the new normal. Inasmuch as we still have to adhere and comply to the health guidelines that are being asked of us, to wear our masks, I also feel that it's important for each of us to define what this new normal is, not just from an external, out in the world perspective, but what that means to us from a place within ourselves. New normal means change. Things have changed, and I think we can attest to the fact that they have changed in a major way and are no longer the way they were before the coronavirus pandemic hit globally. And that's what we will be discussing today, change. And more specifically, uncertainty, which brings me to my very special guest today, Dennis Merritt Jones. I'm very excited to have Dennis as my guest, and I'm afraid that I won't be able to hear all of his insights, all of his pearls that I so want him to share with you today, but we will try and get as much as we can in the hour that we have. For those of you who are not familiar with Dennis and his amazing work, let me tell you a little bit about Dennis. Throughout his lifetime, Dennis Merritt Jones has been on a quest to inspire and lift people to a higher expression of life. His personal vision is to guide people to their purpose, knowing that when one fully awakens to who they are and why they are on the planet, they begin to naturally share their gifts with humankind and, in the process, create an enriching life for themselves and the world around them. Dennis has published several acclaimed books, each one of them a gem. The Art of Abundance, 10 Rules for a Prosperous Life, Encouraging Words, articles and essays that prove who you are matters. Your redefining moments, becoming who you were born to be. How to Speak Science of Mind. The Art of Being, 101 Ways to Practice Purpose in Your Life, which was the recipient of the Nautilus Gold Award for Inspirational Books. And The Art of Uncertainty, How to Live in the Mystery of Life and Love It. Also a recipient of the Nautilus Silver Award for Motivational Books, and was the first runner-up in the 2012 Books for Conscious Living. Both writings have received Books for a Better Life Award from the Multiple Sclerosis Society. In addition to his books, Dennis is a world-class keynote speaker, mentor, and columnist for the Huffington Post and Science of Mind magazine. Dennis believes we each have the capacity and ultimately the responsibility to contribute something positive to this world, leaving it a better place than it was when we arrived. His teachings promote a contemporary, life-affirming, spiritually logical, and positive outlook on life, which are reflected in his writings. Dennis is a universal speaker who is equally comfortable speaking to an audience seeking spiritual inspiration or to those seeking a purely secular motivational message. He uses his understanding of universal principles to draw upon wisdom from both Eastern and Western philosophies. He believes that there is a deeper consciousness of unity, cooperation, and reverence rising in humankind, where the value of all life, regardless of ethnicity, geography, culture, or sexual orientation, is considered sacred. He believes this consciousness of unity, cooperation, and reverence for life and the planet will be one of the most significant influences upon society as we approach the challenges of 21st century living. Welcome, Dennis, to Mindfulness Monday.
Well, that was a lot of introduction. I should be so lucky to be able to live up to half of that. Thank you.
Well, that is a beautiful bio on you, and I think very inspirational to the talk that we're going to have. I mean, I want to hear so much of what you have to say and share with our listeners today. And I have to say, Dennis, your work could not be more timely. It's really interesting that your books, as we discussed before we went live, The Art of Living and The Art of Being are extremely timely to read. So I highly recommend listeners to check out Dennis's books. So I think I want to jump in with you, Dennis, into what I just read in your bio, which really resonates powerfully, which is that you believe that there is a deeper consciousness of unity, cooperation, and reverence rising in humankind, where the value of all life, again, as I said in the beginning, when I introduced you, regardless of ethnicity, geography, culture, or sexual orientation, is considered sacred. And to add to that, that you believe this consciousness of unity, cooperation, and reverence for life in the planet will be one of the most significant influences upon society as we approach the challenges of 21st century living. Okay, Dennis, at a time, wow, when we're facing some of the greatest challenges we could have ever imagined in our lifetime, like the coronavirus, global pandemic, and then on top of that, the brutal murder of George Floyd, which erupted in such a huge outcry for justice against racism. What can you tell us about this consciousness of unity that you speak of, which I profoundly agree with, and how we are going to realize it at a time when millions of people feel distraught, afraid, angry, and uncertain?
Wow. A colleague of mine, Barbara Marx Hubbard, at one point inferred that in one of the conversations I had with her that humanity is giving birth to a new kind of human. And it doesn't, we're in the birth canal right now, and it's painful.
Wow.
There's a tremendous, as you've already articulated, or there's a tremendous amount of pain in which is driven by fear that's moving through humankind, perhaps unlike we've ever seen before in modern times. And there's an old adage, we evolve through either inspiration or desperation. And right now, I think that the collective mind of humankind has chosen desperation, pain, in order to move us to that edge to grow, to evolve to who we've come here to be, individually as well as collectively. There's a wonderful teaching in Science of Mind. Ernest Holmes talks about the creative divine urge, which is that, and I talk about it in the book, there is that life force that's moving through every living thing, and it's pushing out. If it could talk, it would be saying, I've got to be more tomorrow than I was yesterday. And it's going to get it's getting our attention whether we like it or not, because we're here to evolve and to be the instruments through which the evolution of the soul, the spirit, happens. And 99% of us are unconscious and unaware that that's the case. Holmes also referred to the consequences of ignoring or trying to push down this creative divine urge that's pushing out through all living things. He referred to it as the universal imperative: grow or die.
Yes.
And if we refuse to grow, then the universe compassionately helps us not be here anymore, so that those who are willing to grow come forward and do the growing. It's tough, man. It's a tough time for humankind right now, but we're giving birth to a new kind of a human being, and it's going to be I don't know whether we'll see it in our lifetime or not, but I do believe that the collective consciousness of humankind is evolving. It doesn't have a choice. It's going to.
I couldn't agree with you more, Dennis. And in many ways, it makes me think of how, I don't say this judgmentally, how ill-prepared we were, in that we cannot predict the changes that are before us. We don't really know what we're going to face, which is why spiritual work, I feel, is so important.
Yeah.
And that we have been so jolted out of our comfort zone, and again, as you know, that's why the spiritual work, one spiritual practice, or developing one today.
Right.
If you haven't had one.
What you're saying is accurate, and this is not a new story for humankind. We've lived in uncertainty from the day
Right. Right. Yes.
Eons. Uncertainty has been the rule of the day, and we ignore it. We pretend it's not there until we're forced to deal with it, and that usually happens when we're pushed to the edge of our comfort zone, where change is required. And
right.
then we're faced to deal with the uncertainty. And the same human beings 2,000 years ago had the same issues, same concerns, the same fears. It's all driven by fear.
Right. And the complacency, for me, that's really the dualistic nature of existence. I mean, that saying now, this too shall pass, we mustn't hurry this along. I have called this the Great Awakening. I didn't make that up. I know that there have been periods of great awakening throughout history, excuse me, as you know, but that we really do need to recognize the importance of this growth. And I love the birth canal aspect that you spoke of. You say in your book, Dennis, that our ride through life is far too often a projection of the same images day after day, and thus we become prisoners to the known. And yet, now we're dealing with so much unknown. You also say that in the process, we miss the juice, which I love that, the way you say that comes with the adventure of going where we have never been before. We were sent here to be explorers, you say, to push, as you talk about, grow and evolve. But this can only happen when we are willing to experience new rides in life. Talk to us, Dennis, about this new ride in life we're on right now, and quite a ride this is. Tell us how we keep pushing, growing, and evolving through it, as challenging as it may be.
Well, you got a ticket for the ride, whether you like it or not. It's called being alive. And so we're all on the ride, and a lot of people will resist getting on the ride or staying on the ride because it's too dang scary, And yet the alternative is, I use the metaphor in the book about there's two different kinds of rides at the amusement park. The merry-go-round, which you get on and it goes around and around and around the same circle. It goes nowhere fast. You end up right where you started. Nothing changes. Whereas the alternative is to get on Space Mountain or the roller coaster, where you don't know what's coming next. You don't know where the curves are. You don't know what's ahead of you. And yet someplace within you that the ride's going to end okay if you stay with it and breathe and enjoy it. And so the metaphor is we're on this ride and we don't have a choice. We're on the ride. We can either choose to strap in and learn to lean into uncertainty, the fear of the unknown. Darkness essentially is what that is. And learn to adapt to it and to look at it, move from it being uncertain to a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
The book I refer to it's all a shift in perception. What is a mystery? A mystery is that which is not yet known, but
Right.
you don't. I love the root word for mystery, mystery, or mystique. We're all mystics. I say that in the book. We're all mystics, whether you like it or not. What is a mystic? A mystic is someone who is conscious enough to sense the presence of some interior guidance within them that knows beyond the veil of the five senses what to do, how to be led into what is next. The problem is some of us are optimistics and some of us are pessimistics.
I love that. That was such a great play on that. That's so wonderful. Love it.
And pessimistics are fearful. They're looking down. They're afraid to move forward. And optimistics are leaning into it.
Right.
Saying, show me the way. What's next? I'm open. Guide me.
Right. The great fear of the unknown, and, many people might feel, well, wait a minute, I didn't sign on for this. Well, what did you think you were signing on for? As you said, you're alive. That's what you are, whether you like it or not, you're alive. So you either, what I like to call free fall into this with tremendous resistance, or as you so beautifully said, you move into the unknown as a optimistic. I just love that.
Well, I love the term free fall. My friend Howard Starkey used to refer to it as that. And free fall, in the book, I have a chapter that starts out with birds, the story of the birds, which is a true story on the ledge back there. Babies coming to the edge of the ledge and for the first time in their lives, falling into the call of gravity and learning that they had something within them that knew how to fly.
Right. Yes.
Mom bird wasn't around to teach them how to fly. Dad bird wasn't there. There's something within the bird that knows how to fly. That's at the level of animal, that's instinct. That's the mystic within the animal, knowing what to do that goes beyond the physical characteristics of the creature itself. The same intelligence lives within us. We might want to call it intuition, but there's a knowing within us that knows how to get us through what's next if we stay conscious. And this is where what you teach and what I teach come in, mindfulness.
Exactly.
Mindfulness is what puts us in the present moment so we can be available to the information there and to access it and trust it and allow it to lead us, to guide us.
Beautifully. You just went right into my next question about bringing mindfulness into the conversation, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. Mindfulness, as you and I both know, is the practice of being fully present in the moment. And you also describe it in your book as remembering to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Why is mindfulness, Dennis, so important for us to practice, especially at this time with everything that's going on in our lives and out in the world?
Well, mindfulness is your point of power to the present moment. In Sanskrit, the word is smriti. It means remember to come back. Remember to come back. And the question is, come back to what? Come back to the present moment, because this is where we activate our ability to make choices in the present moment. Remembering to remember is mindfulness is a practice. You notice our bodies are always in the present moment. Can't be anywhere else.
No.
That's how great our bodies are. But where are our minds a great deal of the time?
Right.
They're either cast out in front of us or dragging along the dead corpse of the past behind us, right? And so the practice of mindfulness is bringing your mind back into your body in the present moment, where that's where your point of power is. That's where you have the ability to make choices and to choose again.
Right.
Again and again.
Beautiful, beautiful. I say that mindfulness is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Do you know? And that it's amazing how we try to hurry out of the moment, the very blessing of the moment that we are most alive in. I mean, it's so illogical in many ways. And as you said, it really is the schism between the mind and the body. Do you know?
Yeah.
One of the chapters in The Art of Uncertainty is coming to the edge of uncertainty, pushed by pain or pulled by possibilities, as you say. You also have a beautiful quote in that chapter, which says, "Come to the edge," he said. "They said, we are afraid." Do you want to say it?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear you say it.
Come to the edge, he said. They said, no, we're afraid. Come to the edge, he said. They came. He pushed them. and they flew.
Mm.
And I tie that quote into the story about the birds, because that's exactly what the birds have to do the first time that they leave the nest. They have to come to the edge of everything they've ever known and trust that there's something within them that knows how to get them to what's next. And that quote is from Guillaume Apollinaire, great
Beautiful.
poet, mystic, social pundit.
Love it. Love that quote. It's just so beautiful. Talk to us, Dennis, more about what it means to live on that edge of uncertainty for people that really want to understand that better. You know what I mean?
It's funny you'd ask me. I practice mindfulness in interesting ways. In my workshops and retreats, I give out mindfulness stones. You probably do too. It's like a Japa mantra stone. It's to help remind you of a mantra, right? To repeat, to keep you present.
Keep you
I'm going to
present.
show you the one that I carry in my pocket most of the time.
Oh, I love it. Trust.
Yeah.
Yes. There you go.
And that's the practice is to learn to trust and to have faith in that which you cannot see. And that's where spiritual practices come in. I don't know how anybody could unfold who they came here to be, knowing that there's a part to them that is bigger, greater than this physical skin bag we live in, and not have faith and trust that there's something within us that put us here on purpose that knows how to get us to what's next if we do our part. And that's the challenge, is being willing to do our part.
Absolutely.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to come to the edge. Nobody wants to come to the edge. It's scary there.
Kicking and screaming, right? Many people.
They're saying everybody resists change, but babies. There's change of diapers, but it's also they haven't learned to fear the ride yet.
But it's coming to the precipice of great change, and I love that. I think the quote by Heraclitus: "Change is constant.
Yeah.
It's forever happening."
The only constant is change.
Right. There's nothing we can do about that. So it is inevitable. You also say, Dennis, in The Art of Uncertainty, that I think you were just beginning to touch a little bit upon that when we started the conversation, in that there is a universal imperative, grow or die. You go on to say that it is a universal imperative that all living things must grow. And if they don't, they die. There is no middle ground. Right. This universal imperative includes us. When we cease growing, you say, a part of us begins to slowly die. Talk to us more about that.
One second. Okay. Phone's ringing.
Don't worry. I know the sounds.
It's
part of real time. Part of real time. Universal imperative.
Universal imperative. If you take a look at your fingernails, are they growing? Shake your head like this. Yes, they are. Is your hair growing? Even if you don't have much hair, it's right now. My proof I haven't been to the barber in a number of years, a number of months. So we're hardwired to grow. As living creatures, you can't not grow. And the universal imperative is when you start resisting that, this is the life force that inhabits every living thing, including relationships. Have you ever seen a relationship that stopped growing? Mm-hmm. What happens to the relationship? It slowly dissolves and implodes, right? Because it is not evolving, it's not growing. Mm-hmm. When I do work with couples and mentoring, I work on creative vision for the relationship that requires them to continue to go into self-inquiry and see where they're resisting growing, both as individuals and as a couple. Mm-hmm. So everything life force occupies insists on growth to unfold, and we resist change because change brings us to the edge of uncertainty, and we cling. Buddha taught so well. The Four Noble Truths are all about suffering, and the third noble truth is the law of impermanence. Everything has a beginning, has an end, but we cling to it.
Right.
And when we cling, we out of fear, it introduces a whole other chain of cause and effect.
Which I think is ultimately just having an inherent fear of death. But
that's all fear. All fear is attached to that.
but this is a journey of rebirthing. We are, we don't really die until we leave this body. And yet we're so afraid of the very thing that we have to embrace so that we can continue the rebirthing process. Do you know?
Think of it this way, fear is, no question about it. The greatest concern that drives fear is the fear of loss. And
Right.
death is the ultimate loss. But you can also think of it this way, the death of a relationship, the death of a career, the death of a reputation, a bank account, a lifestyle. All these things are that represent the possibility of loss. What's behind that is fear. The fear of loss causes suffering. And the way to get back past that is, I guess, to understand that as Buddha said, the law of impermanence is going to win out whether you like it or not.
Absolutely. And we're really experiencing that in a very powerful way now with the pandemic, when we've had to go in stay-at-home isolation. We are not functioning as our roles, our identities, our personas. It's really short-circuited a lot of people. Well, if I'm not out there doing my job, if I'm not out there doing my career, if I'm not out there doing what I do, then who am I? Do you know?
You just set me up for the perfect, segue here, which is, this is a great time for you to work on going in rather than going out, and developing a deeper understanding of who you are and why you've come here. Right. One of my books titled "You're Redefining Moments: Becoming Who You Were Born to Be" is about just that, about taking you back to who you were the moment you were born, and begin to redefine yourself based on that awareness. Before the world got a hold of you and started putting labels on you that told you who you were supposed to be or how you were supposed to be in the world. And you don't find that by going out to the world. You find it by diving within and taking that vertical plunge to the core of our self, capital S, and bringing that awareness back up to the surface of life, and then integrating it into our daily lives.
Right. Absolutely beautiful. And I do feel, again, with the discomfort of the changes that we are facing at this time, comes the meeting ourselves, coming to know ourselves in ways that we maybe avoided through distraction. We're very busy people out in the world, constantly on our devices, so busy doing that we don't really know what it's like to just be. Yeah. So it's really been a very powerful transition for many, many people. Again, more so for those that I think haven't been spiritually prepared.
And it's not by their own choice. It was forced upon them. The universe has interesting ways of putting it right in our face: grow or begin to perish.
Right.
And so we're being given an opportunity to grow, whether we like it or not. And some people that are in social quarantine or distancing, they don't like themselves very much, and that's why they don't want to be alone. They want to co-miserate or share their misery with other people.
Right.
And the gift in being alone, if you're open to it, is there's a teacher within each of us that's willing to show us what we need to love ourselves more, to be able to go deeper into the understanding that we're here on this planet, not by accident. You're not here by accident.
Right.
You're not here just to suck air and jam stuff down your pie hole until the day you leave the planet. You're here to be a vessel through something that something great unfolds that's greater than you. You can't do that when you're focused on you. It's
absolutely, Dennis. This is a great opportunity for personal transformation, and I hope that many are taking this opportunity and spending their time wisely. You also say that, like it or not, life is a mystery, which you talked about a little bit about before, which I absolutely agree with you. You go on to say that those who insist on knowing the whys and hows of everything are not generally happy, healthy, and peaceful individuals. Their need to know is driven, again, by the fear that we talked about and insecurity, not inspiration. To me, that really exemplifies why practicing mindfulness is so incredibly important, because so many people are not content living in the moment of now and accepting the moment they're most alive in. Can you talk to us, Dennis, more? I know you touched upon it, but talk to us more about this delicious thing called the mystery, and why it's so hard for people to live their life believing that this thing called life is in fact a great mystery. What is the resistance to that?
Think about this. Think about this. Everybody who's watching this, think about this. You know, when you took your first breath on the planet, you know, it began the introduction to a new mystery. And you know, when in my mindfulness classes or workshops, I talk to people about breathing and about how important conscious breathing is, because it brings us to the present moment. And the very first thing we did when we got to the planet was to breathe in, and the last thing we'll do is to breathe out.
Right.
And that's important. But what's most important is the countless breaths we take between those 2 points. And it's the introduction to where the mystery is. Think about this. We each came from the ethers of God knows where before we landed in these bodies.
Right.
And we'll circumnavigate the planet for a number of years. And at the right time, at the chosen time, our soul will eject and return back into the ethers from which it came. What's not mysterious about that? You know, that is the most profound mystery of all. And yet, the time that we're here, from that first breath to our last breath, is no less a mystery. It's just that we go unconscious because we're all control freaks. We want to be able to control what tomorrow is going to look like.
Right.
Myself included. My course of evolution to this awareness didn't come overnight, or did not come easy. You know, it did not come easy. Maybe that's why it took me. I've been studying this stuff now for over 40 years, and I guess that every year that I study it, I learn more about how much I don't know.
I love that. The beginner's mind, right? Always the beginner's mind.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful, and I love that you so highlight the mystery. And having written just a book myself, which you so graciously endorsed, you know, Mindfulness and Mysticism, it's a mystery. How could you not look up in the heavens? How could you not look at a starry night? Look around you, the cosmos, this, you know, the fact that we're floating in space. And if that isn't a mystery, and we're part of that, then what is not to know that this is in fact a mystery?
I'm a strong proponent of self-inquiry, and I'm sure you are too, right?
Yes.
In the East, there's a teaching, I think I put it in one of the chapters of the book, called The Three Miracles. You know, and if we could do self-inquiry around those 3 miracles, it would take us to that point of deep, profound enlightenment. The first miracle is that anything exists. Anything exists. Just as you said, look up the stars, look at the sky, look at how things, there's this orderly pattern that moves through the planet, around the universe. It knows what it's doing. It's a miracle. The second miracle is that living things exist. Plants. I got a puppy dog laying at my feet here. The trees, you know, these bodies of living things exist. That's a miracle. There's some intelligence, some life force animating every living thing moving through it, whether it's a human body or an orchid in the garden.
Right.
And that's profound thought. And the third miracle is living things exist that know they exist. Self-awareness. And probably most people don't stop to pause and consider the most profound gift of all, and that is self-awareness. The fact that we can think a thought, have an emotion, and then step outside of that thought or that feeling and look at it.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's self-awareness. And through self-awareness, that's how we evolve, you know, by becoming more aware and more aware and more aware that we are thinking, feeling, emotional creatures, and that we can monitor what we're thinking and feeling and alter in a way that serves ourselves and others in a beneficent way if we're conscious enough, which brings us full circle back to mindfulness. Being in the present moment so we can have that experience, right?
Absolutely. And that we have the opportunity to heighten our awareness with every moment that we're in, which then raises our consciousness. And not just for us, but as you say, individually and collectively. You know, we are part of this cosmic, mysterious collective that we're all a part of, which is so incredible. I mean, I'm just in awe of this daily, you know, moment by moment.
I love to say, there's only one of us here. There's only one of us here.
I
And
know.
when we can each ascend to that awareness of our oneness, we'll stop hurting each other. We'll stop fearing each other. We'll stop hating each other. When we realize that there's only one of us here and we all come from the same one and reflect it. Somebody said God's a great prankster who does it all with mirrors. There's only one of us here.
Beautiful,
Only one of
beautiful,
us.
Dennis. Let's talk a little bit about our inner guidance, which you also talk about in The Art of Uncertainty. You write that spiritual teacher Shakti Gawain, who I really love her work as well, says that every time you don't follow your inner guidance, you feel a loss of power, a sense of spiritual deadness. You go on to say that when you choose not to listen and honor the guidance from within, you invite again what you talked about, the universal imperative, which we had already touched upon, and it begins to have its way with you. And some of your life force begins to wane. Talk to us more about following and trusting our inner guidance.
This is where emotional awareness, practicing emotional awareness comes in. My friend Gary Zukav and his partner Linda Francis wrote a great book called The Heart of the Soul.
Mm-hmm.
It is a book about emotional awareness. I'd strongly recommend it to people. Emotional awareness is, our emotions are really the compass that tell us what's going on in our bodies and our minds if we're willing to listen to it and take heed of when our emotions are giving us information. We can take that information and do something productive with it rather than react to it. But our intuitive nature, I mean, we're hardwired. We've been sent here with all the tools we need to thrive. But most of us are not dialed into it because we're too busy on the surface of life scrambling. I use a graph in my Your Redefining Moments, the book, where you talk about the horizontal pathway of life, which is living on the surface of life, and the vertical pathway, which is taking the dive. Here's doing, here's being, right? Mm-hmm. The practice is to integrate your doing with your being and be able to access that deepest place within you every moment of every day and listen to it and trust it. We all have intuitive guidance and we've all had intuition and those thoughts come up that we perhaps sometimes heard it and ignored it, only to discover we should have listened to it.
Right.
It's like a radio station. Intuition's on, our guidance is on 24/7, but we're not dialed into the right station.
And the inner guidance, I also think of it in a contemplative way in which when we are so busy being busy and we don't allow ourselves to really embrace stillness. And I'm not saying you have to sit like a monk 24 hours in the day, but to allow yourself, to invite yourself into the stillness. Yes. So that you can, I love that beautiful quote, be still and know that you are God. Do you know, if that is an inner guidance for you, then where do you think the guidance resides? Do you know? It is there.
Yeah. If we're operating from our egoic self, though, that's not the guidance we hear. We hear the guidance of the ego, which is the sole purpose. The mission of the ego is to survive. It survives by identifying itself with external power. Mm-hmm. External power. Things we look outside of ourselves for things to give us that sense of power, whether it's a handsome or beautiful body, a Mercedes-Benz, or money in the bank. It doesn't matter what it is. When we look outside of ourselves for that power, we diminish that place within us that where authentic power will ascend from if we give it a chance to do so. That Gary Zukav's book, The Seat of the Soul, does a great job of
it. Beautiful book.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Let's talk, Dennis, about faith. You say that embracing change requires deep faith, but faith in what? You say. You ask your reader, what does faith mean to you? And that your dictionary defines faith as confidence or trust in a person or thing, or a belief that is not based in proof. And you quote scripture saying that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Talk to us about what you say in the book, and that is that faith is an inner knowing that does not rely on the outer world to verify or validate that knowing. So many pearls in your book.
Okay, so here's a faith builder right now. I call it a faith lift. Okay, take your hand.
I love that, the faith lifts.
Put it on your heart.
Faith booster. Give us a faith booster.
Put your hand on your heart. Is it breathing? Is your heart beating? Of course it is. Are you telling it to? No. There's some intelligence within you that is doing that without you telling it to. Now, you know, scientists may say, well, that's just the autonomic nervous system doing its thing. But if you can do the same thing with, think about the breakfast you had this morning. Right now, that breakfast is being turned into skin and tissue and blood and all the things, the energies that sustain this body. And it knows how to draw out from it what's needed and get rid of the rest. That's faith. You eat breakfast every morning in faith, trusting that it's going to give you whatever you need to get through midday. And it's the same thing, you know, when we leave our house, we get in our car, we get in our car and we start driving down the highway. Most of us have faith that we're going to get where we're going. So faith is something that's built into all of us, and it will ascend to the level that we allow it to until we allow fear to come in and push it back down.
And mindfulness, again, gives us the awareness when fear wants to rear its head and sort of push faith out of the way, do you know?
Yeah. I you mentioned the scriptures a couple times. I think Jesus was one of the greatest metaphysicians, teachers who ever walked the planet. And his whole teaching boiled down to essentially two things. And this is my observation. First, he taught the Father and I are one. The kingdom of heaven is within you, oneness. And then he taught, it's done unto you as you believe. The Buddha taught the same thing. It's done unto you, not as you hope, not as you wish, but as you believe.
Yes.
And those two things together work to create a partnership with a power greater than us that we can access and use in intentional ways if we're conscious, present in the moment, and willing to invite it to move through us in conscious, intentional ways. It is not my will, but the Father that does the work. It is not mine. Right?
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. It's like, let faith show you the way. Do you know? At a time, Dennis, when so much change is happening at such a rapid speed, we need to know how to adjust to those changes in the best way that we can. Okay. And in one of your chapters, The Wisdom of Knowing What and When to Let Go, you say that we already know that change in life is a given, as you mentioned earlier on. There is no way around this fact. You go on to say that the larger concern should be how we manage the process when it does happen. If we are conscious, we can perceive change in a manner that allows us to understand the deeper meaning, value, and purpose in this experience. When change is thrust upon us unexpectedly, we may be greatly challenged to see it as the appropriate doorway through which we must pass to our greater good. However, if we are to move forward in Earth School, as you say, to what can be, there comes a time when letting go of what was becomes a prerequisite. Talk to us more about the wisdom of letting go.
Do this. Close your fist like this. You're holding on to something, right? Can you receive anything new with clenched fist? Of course not. You can't. So the wisdom is you have to let go of what you're holding to receive that which can be. One of the greatest teachers about this principle is nature herself. You think about, go out, you got 4 seasons of the year. You don't see a rose bush holding on to its blossoms for 12 months of the year. It knows when it's time to let them go, to be trimmed back so then it can grow again the next season. nature is great, shows great wisdom about knowing when the proper time to release is, so that we may be open to the cycle of what can be. This goes to there's a story in the book. It's this book. I was talking about an elderly gentleman by the name of Stan. And if you got to that point in the book yet, he comes to me for counseling. This is years ago. He says, I'm hurting so bad. Can you help me? And I said, well, what's going on? He said, I've been a widow now for 5 years. She was 90 years old.
Right.
90 years old. He says, I've been a widower for 5 years now, and I'm ready to get back in the game. I got more good miles on me. That's what he said. And there's an optimist for you, right? 90 years old. He says, but the problem, I have no trouble getting dates, but I dated them once, twice, and they don't want to see me again. And it's hurting me. I want to know what's going on. Can you come to my house and have dinner with me? I'll cook dinner and we can talk. So I did. And I no sooner 5 minutes into the conversation over dinner, and he started talking about his beloved past wife. I look around the room, all her pictures hanging on all the walls, her clothes still hung in the closet, right? He still wore a wedding band. 5 years. None of these things are bad, But and I pointed that out to Stan. I said, look, you're sending a message to the universe and every lady that you've seen that you're not available.
Right.
You're not open to receive because you're still holding on to the past.
Right.
And as good as it was, as lovely as it was, if you want to continue to stay in life and thriving and enter new relationships, you have to let go of what was in order to experience what can be. And he got it. He got it. We did some prayer work, and I ran into him about 2 months later in the grocery store, and he was arm in arm with his new fiancée, 85-year-old woman, a younger woman.
Great story. And oftentimes a common mistake that people make when dating, that they keep bringing up the past.
Yeah. So letting go of, it's not just material things. It's also letting go of things that we hold on to emotionally. That's what forgiveness is all about as well. We can't receive anything. In my book, The Art of Abundance, I talk about the necessity of forgiveness as an important part of making space to receive what the universe wants to give you, because you can't receive if you're holding on to resentment.
Absolutely. So true. You have a chapter called Are You Committed or Just Interested? Which I love, because at the end of the day, no matter how much talking we do about change and uncertainty, if you aren't committed to doing the work that change asks us to do, then you really can get stuck in, again, what you call the universal imperative. And that's when we stop growing and a part of us dies. As you say, talk to us more about our commitment to change. And by the way, I have the same thoughts around mindfulness as a mindfulness practitioner. I love how people are so turned on in the moment, and then boom, they go right back out and, get back into their cars and get out of the moment, Mm-hmm. So I'm really all for the understanding of making a commitment to oneself, to the practice, not just sort of browsing or shopping or perusing, but really making a commitment with oneself.
That's something I talk with students early on when I used to teach classes in spirituality, is that this is not a casual encounter. That you want to change your life, you've got to be willing to really enter into the willingness to know that there's a process involved, that this is not a pathway for those who are addicted to instant gratification.
Right.
We have to be willing to stay the course, and commitment to anything. Well, look at people who've been, my parents lived until they were 95. They were married 75 years to the same person. And not all those years were wonderful blue skies and green lights. There were some tough years there, but they demonstrated the ability to commit to one another in a way that transcended the challenges that they have. And so commitment to our spiritual path is really a commitment to ourselves. It's a commitment to knowing that there's more for us to do and be. That's why we're here. And we have a responsibility to bring that forward. And it doesn't happen without commitment. Whether you, as a writer, you start a book and you don't casually kind of waltz through it. If you want to write a book, there's a commitment. When I write a book, I'm at the computer every morning at 6 o'clock a.m.
Right. And
What
you have days, and some days are very challenging.
you bet. There's certain days when I sit there looking at the screen and maybe I'll get 10 or 20 words written, right? And yet it's the commitment to the process that opens up the heart and the mind to get back into the flow of the creative process.
Absolutely.
The universe is looking for a sign from us, and the sign is called commitment.
Yeah. Very powerful word too, I think, to really meditate on and be with. Let's talk about choices, because I'm seeing that the time as I had thought is flying by. Let's talk about choices. You have a chapter called How Conscious Are Your Choices? You start that chapter by asking the reader, have you ever stopped to consider the number of choices you make daily? You go on and say, this is an important question because the more conscious you are about your choices, the more likely it is you will end up where you want to be at the end of your stay on this planet. Talk to us more about conscious choices.
Well, conscious choices don't happen by accident. And conscious choices always happen in the present moment. And mindfulness is the ticket that gets you to the present moment to observe the choices you're making. I love the idea that you can make a choice, and if it doesn't work out right, you can choose again.
Yes.
That's pretty profound. And most people they don't stop to think about the fact that you can do that. Choice, to not make a choice is to make a choice.
Right. Exactly.
And it's very self-defeating. So the practice of becoming a conscious observer of the thoughts you're having and the feelings you're having that guide you to the choices you make. I like Gary Zukav, my friend. He talks about temptation as a choice that we're thinking about making.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that temptation is like a dress rehearsal in your mind. And if you could play out the consequences of that choice before you make the choice, you can see where it's going, and maybe you can say, oh, that's not really where I want to go, so I'm going to make another choice. But you can't do that if you're not present in the moment enough to look at the thought. And
that's really, really quite the discipline of the mind, to be so present as to not be ahead of ourselves and want the end result or want the outcome or want the payoff. Right. You also have a chapter, Dennis, called Pay Attention to Your Intention. Mm-hmm. Your vision is your compass to a life worth living. You say, there is an inherent danger of losing our way to a life worth living if we get too comfortable in the land of uncertainty. That is, without a sense of intention. Uncertainty can become an excuse to loiter. Love that. A place to just hang out on a journey that ultimately takes us nowhere. Talk to us more about that. And I have one more question after that before we have to end.
Intention is everything. Nothing happens without intention. When you get in your car to go someplace, you don't just get in your car and take a drive. You have an intention to get someplace specific, whether it's the grocery store or across the country. But your intention is what guides you. And again, your intention is guided by the choices you make. And so there's no such thing as casual intention without consequences that are going to be rewarding. We need to, how can I best say it? Intend means to put yourself in the present moment and see where you want to be and follow the guidance that gets you there. And the more conscious your intentions can be, the more likely it is you'll get there.
Right.
I don't know how I can make it any more clear than that. You think, and it goes back to self-awareness. Watch your thoughts, watch your feelings, look at the intention behind them. How many times do we say something hurtful to somebody else, and we didn't really think that was our intention? And yet, I got a better example. When I was teaching classes, I used to have this one guy that would come into every class 15 or 20 minutes late. Every time, didn't matter what week it was, he was always showing up 10 or 15 minutes late. And he came in about the fifth week, and I looked at him and I kind of gave him that, don't do this again. Look, he says, well, I didn't intend on being late. I said, yeah, you did, because you are late.
Yeah.
And when you show up on time, that's because you will intend to be on time. He
right.
showed up on time after that, by the way.
Good. He got it.
Yeah.
Good that he got it. Dennis, my last question to you, this has been so lovely, is your chapter, Remembering to Remember Who We Are, Where We Are, and Why We Are. Mindfulness makes the mystery meaningful. Talk to us about why that is. Leave us with your pearls, Dennis, about how mindfulness makes the mystery meaningful.
Well, I alluded to it throughout this conversation, Ora, and that is that we're not here by accident. I think we're each here on a mission, and we're encoded at the soul level to come here and be the highest and best individualized, unique expression of life, of God, infinite intelligence that we can be. When we leave the planet, I thought this is a metaphor, but I think we're going to be asked two questions before we're allowed to continue the unfolding of ourselves at the next level. The first question is, did I learn to love well?
Mm-hmm.
Did I learn to love well? And the second question is the planet a better place today than it was the day you got there because you were there?
Beautiful.
And so, the book, Encouraging Words, Articles and Essays That Prove Who You Are Matters. That's what that book is about, is understanding that who you are matters. But the only thing that is even more important than that is that who you are matters when you do the right thing with who you are.
Mm-hmm.
What you do with who you are matters even more.
Right.
So every day, gift before us to step into the mystery and say, show me what's next. I'm willing to come to the edge and lean over, trusting and knowing there's something within me that knows how to get me to what is next. And I'm willing to do my part. I surrender, I give up. By the way, that's the title of my next book, The Art of Surrender.
Oh, beautiful. Can't wait. Dennis, this has been a pure treat and a gift. And I thank you for being my guest today, my very special guest. For more on Dennis, you can go to www.dennismerrittjones.com. And all of Dennis's books are on Amazon. I would highly recommend you go and I'm just going to Amazon, and it's like a treat. I keep ordering more of your
that 4 of them have study guides that are free downloadable study guides from my website. And you can download if you want to do a group study or home studies or just go deeper into it.
Oh, that is so wonderful. So again, Dennis, thank you so much for this wonderful visit and all that you shared with our listeners today. And for our listeners out there, I hope that you got so much more light that can fill your day today by listening to Dennis and what he had to share with us. Do you know, we have a new day here. We have the opportunity to be present in the moments of this day starting now. So I hope that you have a blessed day. And from my heart to yours, until we meet again.